quiet stretches of Arizona's borderlands, a 68-year-old woman rocks gently on her porch, sipping coffee as the sun rises. Around her, 3 German shepherds move like shadows, patrolling the land with a level of discipline that feels military. At first glance, Patricia Reynolds looks like just another elderly farmer, easy pickings in a region where the Cartel has been swallowing up land for their drug routes. But when Cartel Lieutenant Roberto Vargas targets her property, he finds out the hard way. This woman isn't just guarding a farm. Pat Reynolds is one of the Marine Corps' most decorated K-9 trainers, and those dogs, they're not pets. They're combat veterans, each one trained for war and battle-tested in the most dangerous corners of the world. What Vargas thought would be a routine land grab quickly spirals into one of the biggest drug busts in Arizona history, proving that underestimating someone based on appearances can be a fatal mistake. Quick pause. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and hit subscribe if you love these kinds of stories, because tomorrow's episode is absolutely wild. As the morning light stretches across Pat's 30-acre training facility, her lead dog Major stands firm beside the porch. Scout and Delta, the other 2 shepherds, sweep the perimeter in perfect formation. Pat's hands, lined with years and experience, wrap around a steaming coffee mug. In the distance, tires crunch gravel. It's Sheriff David Brooks rolling up in his patrol car. She doesn't get up. She knew he was coming. "Morning, Pat," he says, stepping out with a folder. "Brought those reports you asked for. 3 farms in 3 weeks. They're moving fast." Pat takes the file without a word. Her eyes scan the horizon. "The Wilson place went dark last night. No calls answered." Then she adds, "Bill Campbell came by yesterday, said a man named Pedro Martinez offered him double the market rate for his land. Same story over and over." Suddenly Major's ears twitch. His body stiffens. Pat sees it instantly. "David," she says quietly, "we've got company." A sleek black SUV glides past the gate. Slow, deliberate. The dogs don't move from their posts, but their focus locks on the vehicle. "Roberto Vargas," David mutters. "He's getting bold." Pat takes another sip. Bold doesn't mean smart. The SUV comes to a stop. A man in a crisp suit steps out, adjusting his cuffs. You can tell by the way he moves. He's used to getting what he wants. "Miss Reynolds," he calls. "Might we have a word?" Pat places her mug on the table. "You're trespassing, Mr. Vargas." "I'm here with an opportunity," he says smoothly. "Tough times for small farmers." Pat fires back without blinking. Tougher for cartel lieutenants who miss their quotas. His smile flickers, but he recovers. "I admire your spirit, but I think you're mistaken about my intentions. Like the Wilson farm or the Martinez property." Pat stands. Major moves with her. Scout and Delta appear from opposite flanks, guarding the entrance with silent intensity. Vargas glances at the dogs. "Impressive German shepherds. Must be expensive to keep." "They're worth every cent," Pat says. "Would you like a demonstration?" The air goes still. The threat is quiet but real. Vargas thinks it over, then steps back. "Another time, perhaps. Consider my offer. Triple the market value." "That's more than fair." "Nothing fair about blood money," Pat replies. He gets back in the SUV. "You're alone out here, Miss Reynolds. Think about that." The car disappears into the dust. David grabs for his radio. "Want me to call it in?" "Not yet," Pat says calmly. Let him think he made his point. "Pat, you need backup. I can assign someone." "I've already got it," she answers, and lets out a sharp whistle. The dogs snap into formation like soldiers on command. "They're not just dogs, David," she says. "Major did 3 tours in Afghanistan, scouts and explosives expert. Delta's our tracker. The cartel's about to learn the difference between house pets and warriors." Later that day, Deputy Laura Gonzalez shows up for training. Pat is reviewing footage, scanning for movement, marking patterns. "We cancel the session?" Laura asks. "Just the opposite," Pat grins. "Let's give them something to think about." She turns to the dogs. "Major, security sweep. Scout, Delta, Perimeter check. With nothing but hand signals and subtle commands, the trio fans out with choreographed precision. Laura can't believe what she's seeing. People see an old woman and some old dogs, Pat says. They don't realize these boys have saved more lives than most soldiers ever get the chance to. She points to camera feeds, sensors, markings on the fence. Every scratch on that post, every motion they make, it's all data, intel. And these guys, they're watching. The cartel never fails when they target a property, Laura warns. They've never targeted a Marine K-9 unit before, Pat replies. Let's remind them what that means. As night falls, Pat does her final rounds. The dogs have already detected new surveillance points. 4 distinct cartel scouts. They're plotting, probing, preparing. They'll make their move soon, she tells David, who checks in before heading back to town. You sure you want to let this play out? Pat looks out across her land, her dogs circling in tight formation. Their movements are silent, surgical. Sometimes the best trap, she says, is the one your enemy thinks is theirs. Then she smiles. Cold, ready. Let them come. My boys have faced worse. In Kandahar. Night settles over the training facility. To an outsider, it all looks quiet. Just an old woman's farm watched over by 3 aging dogs. But as the cartel is about to find out, appearances can be dangerously misleading. At dawn, Pat walks the grounds with Major by her side. The sound of trucks on the main road has been increasing. Too much. Too early. She recognizes the pattern. The cartel is applying pressure, keeping residents on edge with non-stop surveillance, chipping away at their nerves. A sudden screech of tires breaks the calm. A pickup skids to a stop at her gate. Bill Campbell jumps out, pale and shaken. Pat! They torched my barn last night. Anyone hurt? She asks, already alert. Got the horses out, but barely, he says, handing her a charred note, 3 words scrawled on it. Time's running out. Pat's jaw tightens. Major, Scout, Delta, patrol formation. The dogs instantly move out, scanning the property like clockwork. Pat leads Bill inside. You're staying here today, she says. They'll be watching to see if you run scared. Pat, you don't get it, Bill pleads. They said next time. Bill, how long have we known each other? 20 years, give or take. Then trust me, we've got this. She checks her monitors. The security feed's already picking up movement. Deputy Laura Gonzalez will be there soon for training. And Bill's about to see what kind of training that really means. Laura shows up early, her cruiser loaded with gear. Pat fills her in as they watch the dogs work. Major, Scenario 3. With no more than a gesture, Major drops into stealth mode, gliding through the mock village. Scout and Delta fan out wide, forming a coordinated net. In Kandahar, we lost 3 men to an ambush, Pat says. That's when I built this protocol. They watch as Major signals a threat. Scout moves to cut off escape. Delta closes in for the takedown. This isn't security work, Laura. This is battlefield conditioning. Each of these dogs has over 1,000 hours in live combat zones. Just like their handler, Laura says. Pat's hand briefly touches the scar on her arm. That's a story for another day. Just then, Mary Thompson pulls up for the dog's monthly health check. She steps out and freezes. Pat, you've got company. Black SUV, 2 trucks behind. I see them, Pat says calmly. Bill, Laura, inside. Mary, act like it's just another checkup. Major, Scout, continue patrol. Delta, shadow the dock. The vehicles creep by. Cameras flash. Vargas's men are taking pictures. They're documenting everything, Laura says. Let them, Pat replies. They still have no clue what they're looking at. Mary gets to work while Pat and Laura go over strategy. Bill watches from the window, stunned by how calm everyone is. There's something you should know, Mary says quietly. At my clinic, people have been asking for livestock sedatives, large quantities, new clients, new faces. They're planning a coordinated hit, Laura realizes. Target the dogs. Pat chuckles. They still think these are just guard dogs. Major, demonstrate. With a hand signal, Major drops and plays dead. Another flick, he's instantly back in full attack posture. He trained through gunfire, gas attacks, distractions. Scout can detect poison food before it's touched. Delta can track through water. Let them try. A phone rings. Laura answers. Her face grows serious. 3 more farms got threats. They're closing in. No, Pat says. They're showing their pattern. She turns to Bill. Tell me everything about the men who torched your barn. Every detail. As he talks, Pat and the dogs begin to assemble the puzzle. The timing, the routes, the weaknesses. The cartel is following a formula, one that works on civilians, but not on combat vets. Laura, she says, get me every bit of intel you've got on Vargas's holdings. Mary, spread the word, quietly. Tell people to watch their animals. They'll try poison first. What about my farm? Bill asks. They won't hit it again tonight. That was a warning. They think they isolated you, but really, they exposed their hand. Pat steps into her planning room. Maps cover the walls. Surveillance photos are pinned with surgical precision. Major, guard. He takes position as she refines her tactical breakdown. They'll move within 48 hours. It's textbook cartel. Overwhelm, confuse, pressure into surrender. How can you be so sure? Laura asks. Pat points to a grainy image. These trucks, they're deploying supplies, positioning. But they made one mistake. What's that? They thought this was just an old lady's farm. She smirks. Instead, they handed us the perfect recon post. And now, every move they make teaches us their game. That night, Bill finally dozes off in Pat's guest room. Outside, the dogs patrol like phantoms. Silent, calculated, untouchable. A low whistle pierces the quiet. Major signals an alert. Pat checks the monitors. Movement on the edge of the property. Right on schedule, she mutters. She picks up the radio. Laura, you up? Ready when you are? Good. Let's show them why you don't mess with old dogs. Or their handlers. Because tonight, the cartel's night scouts are about to learn the first of many painful lessons. About what happens when you underestimate a warrior unit trained for war. Whether they walk on 2 legs or 4, it means a lot to us that you're here. Now let's get back to the story. Night settles over Pat's property like a heavy blanket, but inside her home, the air is sharp with focus. Through her thermal cameras, she watches 3 figures creeping along the east fence line. Major lies silently at her feet, ears perked. Scout and Delta hold their positions, invisible in the shadows. Laura, you seeing this? Pat whispers into her radio. 3 at the east, Laura replies from her hidden post. 2 more in the brush, looks like bolt cutters, and probably sedative guns. Standard cartel infiltration team, Pat says flatly. She clicks her radio twice. David, are your people in position? Ready on your signal, Sheriff Brooks replies. But Pat, if we move too early, we won't catch the bigger fish. I know. She glances down at Major. Ready to earn your dinner, boy? He doesn't move, but his ears twitch. Years of battlefield discipline have trained him to wait for the right moment. The intruders cut through the first fence. Pat watches as they move, exactly where she wants them, into the narrow corridor between the outer and inner barriers. Now they'll test for dogs, she mutters. 3, 2, 1. A dull thud. Poisoned meat lands in the grass. Bait. Scout, hidden in the dark, silently signals, toxin confirmed, but he gives nothing away. Amateurs, Pat mutters. Major, containment protocol. The dog moves like a shadow circling wide. The intruders, thinking the bait worked, press forward. They never notice Delta tracking them from the other side. They reach the inner fence and begin cutting. Pat gives a hand signal, no words needed. What happens next is instant and overwhelming. Major emerges behind the men with a low growl, their first and only warning. Before they can spin around, Scout and Delta flank them from both sides, locking them into a perfect trap. I wouldn't move if I were you, Pat calls out, stepping into the dim light. These dogs have combat experience. They're trained to disable, and they're very, very good at it. One man starts to reach for his waistband. "Don't," Pat warns. Major growls deeper, his stance shifting. "You've got 3 veterans of Kandahar here," she says. "They can smell weapons, and they move faster than your hands." From the shadows, Laura appears, weapon drawn. "Police, on the ground." "Now." The men drop, all bravado gone, replaced with the terror of being completely outmaneuvered. "Check their phones," Pat instructs. "They'll have been reporting in." Sheriff Brooks arrives with his team, securing the scene. Pat's dogs stay locked in position until the last man is in cuffs. "Well done," David says, examining the gear. "But you know this is just the beginning." "Found something?" Laura calls out, holding up a phone. "Messages? Shipment schedules?" "They weren't just scouting your land, Pat. They're mapping escape routes." This property, Pat confirms, is their biggest obstacle between the border and their new distribution hub. Dawn creeps in as they wrap up. But Pat's morning is far from over. Dr. Mary Thompson arrives early, and not just for the dogs. Her truck is loaded with more than vet supplies. "Pat, we need to talk." She hands over a file. "I've been digging. Those sedatives they've been asking for, they're buying in bulk from multiple clinics across 3 counties. Pat reads the pages. Her face hardens. They're planning something big. A memory flashes. Kandahar, 2009. Insurgents use similar tactics, multiple hits at once designed to overwhelm defenses. "David," Pat says, "this isn't just about farms anymore. We need to warn everyone. Clinics, hardware stores, truck rentals, anything they could use." "Already on it," David replies. "But there's more. Pedro Martinez. Remember him? Construction guy? His company just bought 3 warehouses off the old highway." "Money laundering," Laura suggests. "And distribution points," Pat finishes. She turns to her dogs. "Look alive, boys. This is only going to escalate." Suddenly, Major lifts his head. Scout and Delta react instantly. "Movement," Pat says, eyes locked on the tree line. "Different team. More professional. They've been watching us." "Do we move?" Laura asks. "No," Pat replies, voice calm. "Let them go. Let them report back." Because what they just witnessed wasn't a botched raid. It was a wake-up call. The sun rises over the Arizona desert as Pat reviews the footage. The cartel's scouts were skilled, but they'd never faced opponents with real combat experience. Their tactics, their formation, even their fallback routes, all revealed exactly how they operate and what they're afraid of. "Laura," Pat says, "get me everything on Vargas's known associates. Mary, spread the word. Quiet and careful. And David," "Yeah? Tell Bill Campbell he can go home. But first," she adds, "we're going to show him how to set up the security system I built for his farm." Outside, her dogs patrol the property, synchronized, sharp, unrelenting. The cartel thought they were dealing with an old woman and her 3 pets. Instead, they walked straight into the jaws of a Marine Corps veteran and her battlefield-trained unit, and they've only just begun to understand what that means. Morning light spills across Bill Campbell's newly rebuilt barn, casting everything in a soft golden glow. Pat stands nearby, watching as Major moves with purpose, checking each of the freshly installed perimeter sensors. Scout and Delta continue their rounds, never breaking rhythm. A dozen local farmers gather close as Pat walks them through the upgraded security system. "Remember," she says, adjusting a motion detector, "they're counting on fear. Once they realize you're not backing down, their whole strategy falls apart." "Like it did for your unit in Kandahar?" Bill asks quietly. Pat pauses, a flicker of memory passing behind her eyes. "That was different," she says. "But the principle is the same. You don't win by reacting. You win by forcing them to react to you." 2 patrol cars kick up dust down the road. Sheriff Brooks and Deputy Laura Gonzalez step out. Major's posture tenses instantly. Laura notices it. "Pat, something's wrong," she says. "He's been tracking a scent for an hour." "Scout," Pat calls. The second shepherd trots in from the field, his body language sharp. He's found something. Pat follows him to the far edge of Bill's land. The other farmers stay back, silent. She kneels over fresh tire tracks, inspecting the impressions. "Well, well," she mutters. "Looks like we had visitors last night." David joins her. She points to the tracks. "Professional team. Based on the patterns, these are military-grade vehicles." "Not your average cartel goons," David agrees. "Vargas is escalating," Laura says. "Last night rattled him. Now he's bringing in specialists." Just then, Pat's phone buzzes. Dr. Abe, Mary Thompson. "What's wrong?" "You need to come to the clinic," Mary says, "and bring the dogs." 20 minutes later, Pat's truck rolls into the vet clinic. Mary rushes out, arms full of paperwork. "Remember those sedative orders? I cross-referenced them with supplier manifests." She spreads the documents across her desk. They're not just buying tranquilizers. They're ordering pesticides, chemical precursors, everything they need for large-scale drug production. Pat's eyes narrow as she scans the data. Major stands guard, alert. "They're setting up manufacturing," Pat says, "not just distribution, and they're using our farms to hide it." "That's not all." Mary pulls up satellite images. "Look at the construction patterns at Pedro Martinez's warehouses. They match cartel processing centers in Mexico, almost exactly." "Laura," Pat says, "pull everything you can on Martinez's crews. Mary, make a list of every strange supply order in the last 30 days. Outside, Major perks up. Pat moves to the window. A black SUV convoy rolls slowly past. "Vargas," she says flatly, trying to show force. "No," she corrects herself, "he's testing response times, mapping how fast we react." "Major, Scout, sweep the clinic. Delta, perimeter." The dogs move like clockwork, scanning for bugs. Scout pauses near the waiting room and signals. Subtle but clear. Pat reaches up to the smoke detector hidden inside a small military-grade camera. "They've been watching patients," she says, "tracking who buys what. This isn't street level anymore." Laura inspects the gear. "This is advanced. Contractors. Ex-military or intel. They're gathering intel," Pat says, "before the real strike." Back at Bill's property, the crowd of local farmers has doubled. Word spreads fast in towns like these. Pat walks them through basic defense protocols while the dogs demonstrate. First rule, they'll try to isolate you. Don't let them. Stay connected. Watch each other's land. Second rule, document everything. Photos, notes, cameras. Build a record. "What if they come after our families?" someone asks. "That's their biggest mistake," Pat answers, "because now you know the plan, and knowledge is power." She signals Major, who drops an intruder dummy with surgical precision. They expect frightened farmers. Show them what it means to be trained and ready. The afternoon brings even more unsettling news. Laura uncovers records showing Pedro Martinez's company has been hiring former Special Forces personnel. Mary links the supply purchases to known cartel front companies. In her war room, Pat lays it all out. Maps, logs, photos, a pattern appears. "They're not just expanding," she says. "They're planting roots, building a full-scale operation." She calls David over. "Look at this. Multiple supply routes, redundancies, backup systems. This isn't just drug trafficking. It's infrastructure for long-term control. They're not trying to buy this valley anymore," she adds. "They're trying to own it." Night falls. Outside, Pat runs advanced training drills with the dogs. Scent detection, rapid response, takedown protocols. A car pulls up, a sleek black sedan. Pedro Martinez steps out, suit gleaming in the moonlight. "Miss Reynolds," he says. "A word?" "My dogs don't like unannounced visitors," Pat replies, arms crossed. "I come with a warning, a courtesy. Vargas has hired professionals. People far less gentle than your last visitors." "Like the ones hiding in the trees?" Pat asks, eyes locked on the darkness. Martinez flinches. He hadn't noticed them. Her dogs had. "Tell Vargas his contractors may be good," she says, "but they've never gone up against military working dogs, or their handler." "This isn't personal," Martinez says. It's just business. The moment you threatened this town, Pat replies coldly, it became personal. Martinez nods once and steps back into his car. They'll come at night, soon, with everything they've got. I'm counting on it. He drives off. Back inside, Pat gathers her team, eyes scanning the intelligence wall, because now the next move is coming, and this time, it's hers. A clear picture begins to emerge. The cartel isn't just making noise anymore, they're preparing a full-scale operation. They're going to hit multiple targets, Pat explains. The goal is to overwhelm us before we can respond. But they made one critical mistake, she adds, turning to Laura. What's that? Laura asks. They showed us their playbook. Major, demonstration. Scenario Alpha. In a blur of movement, Pat's dogs shift into coordinated, complex attack formations. Every motion is calculated. This isn't a show. This is how they neutralize professional threats. Combat formations honed through years of real-world training. A distant explosion cuts through the quiet. Another cartel warning shot. But this time, the town is ready. Motion sensors trigger. Cameras roll. Alarms go off across the valley. And a dozen farmers, once seen as soft targets, begin executing Pat's defensive protocols with military precision. They thought they were dealing with country folk, Pat tells David. Time to show them what happens when you push American farmers too far. Suddenly, Major's ears twitch. His body tenses. Movement. Tree line. But this time, Pat smiles. The cartel's surveillance team is about to learn why her dogs earned combat medals in Afghanistan. Remember, boys, she whispers, eyes locked on the darkness. We're not just protecting land anymore. We're defending home. The night grows still as her team prepares. The cartel has money, manpower, and contractors trained for conflict. But they've never gone up against someone who spent decades building a unit to defeat exactly this kind of threat. 2 a.m. Pat's security network comes alive. Multiple movement alerts around the property. She scans the night vision feeds. 8 professional operators, tactical formation, silent, disciplined. Not street thugs, ex-military contractors. Right on schedule, she mutters, watching Major track their movements. Scout and Delta are already in position, hidden in carefully chosen spots. Pat, we've got 3 more teams approaching other farms. Laura radios in. Thompson's Ranch, Campbell's Place, the Wilson property. They're probing the valley. They're testing our response time, Pat nods. David, is your team ready? We're in position, the sheriff responds, but we're stretched thin. That's what they're counting on, Pat says. Major, execute. Delta, engage. Delta slips into the dark, scout circles. Months of preparation are about to pay off. The cartel team hits Bill Campbell's property first and walks right into the trap. Alarms blare, lights flash across the valley. Chaos, by design. Back at Pat's farm, the second team hesitates. They know something's off. Now, Pat whispers. Major charges, his first target, the team's comms specialist, just like he was trained to do in Afghanistan. The man doesn't see it coming. Scout and Delta erupt from their hiding spots, executing a pincer move. The operators try to regroup, but it's too late. One raises a dart gun. Scout strikes first, disarming him in a blur. Police! Freeze! Laura yells, stepping out, weapon drawn. 2 of the intruders turn to fight, but they're surrounded. Major growls low. Delta shifts in from the side. Pat steps into view, calm, unshaken. I'd suggest surrendering, she says. My boys haven't had this much fun since Kandahar. The team leader sees the writing on the wall. He nods. His men drop their weapons. Across the valley, similar scenes unfold. Pat's defense strategy is working, like clockwork. Dawn breaks over Sunset Valley. Sheriff Brooks surveys the aftermath as deputies process the captured operatives. 20 arrests across 4 properties, Laura reports. Military-grade comms gear, tactical equipment. These aren't freelancers. Pat nods, examining their gear. They're Tier 1 professionals, she says. Vargas is burning serious money now. Dr. Mary Thompson arrives, gripping a stack of documents. Pat, those supply manifests? I found something. She lays them out. Pedro Martinez's construction company isn't just building warehouses. The materials match Cartel lab specs, right down to the water filtration units. They're not just taking land, Pat realizes. They're building infrastructure. David, she says urgently, we need warrants for every Martinez site in the county. Already in motion, the sheriff replies. But listen to this. The state police are investigating 3 county officials. Suspicious payments all connected to Martinez. Pat exhales, steady but firm. This runs deeper than we thought. Major suddenly signals again, ears up, eyes sharp. Movement, Pat says, stepping to the monitor. Tree line, surveillance team, watching our response. Let them, she adds. Let them learn. Inside, the captured team leader finally speaks. You don't know what's coming, he sneers. Vargas doesn't lose. Pat doesn't flinch. I've trained dogs to detect IEDs in Fallujah. I've tracked insurgents through mountains. Your boss isn't the first to underestimate us, and he won't be the last. At that moment, Bill Campbell runs up, excitement in his voice. Pat, the system worked. It worked exactly like you planned. She nods. This was just the first wave, Bill. They'll adapt, change tactics. So will we. Throughout the morning, more farmers arrive, drawn by the news, fueled by a shared sense of resistance. Pat shows them how the cameras, the protocols, and the dogs worked in unison to defeat elite-level threats. They thought isolating us would make us weak, she says. But what they did was wake up a community that's ready to fight back. Pat Reynolds, a former Marine K-9 trainer, leads a farming community in defending their land from a cartel's chemical and tactical assault. Using military working dogs, Major, Scout, and Delta, they repel elite mercenaries, expose corrupt officials, and prevent an environmental catastrophe. The cartel attempts to poison the valley's water to force evacuation and take control, but Pat's team anticipates every move. With tactical precision, counterintelligence, and advanced dog training, they neutralize infiltration teams, disarm chemical threats, and help federal agents shut down the operation. In the aftermath, Pat trains communities nationwide to resist similar threats, turning military experience into a defense network that empowers others. What started as a local crisis becomes a nationwide resistance model, proving that unity, knowledge, and community can defeat even the most sophisticated threats.